I am so glad that you're here, my friend, because we do have a slightly longer episode than usual, but oh my goodness, is it a good one? Welcome to the Live Unrestricted podcast, a show where you'll learn how to heal your relationship with food and your body so that you can focus your time and energy on more important things like your personal growth. I'm your host, Sabrina Magna, food freedom coach, and my mission is to help make your life happier and healthier without stress, overwhelm, or guilt about food. If you love the show, please do go out and share it. And if you're looking for support with your relationship with food, details about my programs are in the show notes. Thanks for spending time with me today. Now let's jump in. I am fully aware that doing the kind of work that I do and breaking up with diet culture and doing the deep healing work that's required to heal your relationship with food, your body, and with yourself, really to create a healthy and happy life that you're in love with. I know that there is a lot of fear, a lot of resistance that can come up. It's something new. It's something you've probably never done. It's something you might not even be familiar with. You don't know what to expect. And your brain will go to the worst case scenario about what will happen when you do something different, because your nervous system, what it likes is it likes to keep you safe. That's what it's meant for. And so what is safe for your nervous system is what you know, what is familiar to you. And so if you're really used to dieting and repeating the same patterns over and over again, then to break up with that and to do the work to become an intuitive eater is going to come up with some fear. And as someone who had to go through that fear years ago, I am more than familiar with it. However, I'm also super aware that I'm here standing as a coach, right? I have this podcast, and you might not see that version of me because it was a long time ago and I've come a long way and I'm a completely different person now. And oftentimes when we see someone or we look up to someone, and please don't say that I think you look up to me, but when you follow someone who is teaching something that you want to do or you want to become, we don't see kind of what they had to go through. And so what I find is also really helpful is to bring on people on this podcast, women who have just recently decided to go on that journey, to do the deep healing work of unlearning diet culture and healing their relationship with food and their bodies, who just recently felt a lot of those same fears and had to take on a new mindset in order to push past that fear. And we have an incredible conversation for you today. And I say we because I am joined by Nikki, who is one of our past Food Freedom Academy members. And not only does she have an incredible story, but she also has a lot of valuable lessons to share. I'm not going to give too much of her story away because she's going to share it with you, but she is more than familiar with feeling obsessed with food, being terrified of gaining weight and on that constant yo-yo diet cycle. And chances are just about, 5-6 months ago, she was exactly where you might be right now. So I am not going to give too much away, and I'm just going to play that conversation with you. And I really recommend that you listen to see what are some things that you can take away and you can apply to your own life about the journey that she went on and what was the most valuable for her to now be able to create a life of complete food freedom, where she talks about just being really at peace and being able to create a change in her life that she didn't even think would be possible for her. So I'm going to go ahead and play that conversation with the incredible Nikki. Could you kind of describe where you were before you joined Food Freedom Academy and what was like your history with dieting and your relationship with food?
Yeah, of course. So I actually grew up very skinny. I was underweight when I was very small. I remember I was 25 pounds when I started kindergarten. So just like that, I had some digestive issues as a kid. We were working through stuff. I had some blood sugar issues. But my mom has always been very heavy, and like there's been weight issues on both sides of the family. So in the back of my mind, part of me was like, okay, I don't want to end up that way. But then I could eat everything and never gain weight. So I didn't ever think about it in terms of that until I remember when I went to college, and, they say you're going to gain the freshman 15. And I was so paranoid about gaining the freshman 15 that I started working out a lot. Like I knew people who were in the ROTC, which is like, the armed forces at school. And I would get up early and work out with them. And I don't even like exercise, but like I just was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. So I found friends to do it with. So I was supported, and I did really, really well. And when I was, how old was I? When I got married to my ex-husband, I was like 25, I guess. Yeah, 25. And I got married, and I remember the morning of my wedding, I woke up and like ran 4 miles. I couldn't sleep. I like got up. I was just like, I'm kind of energetic. I've always been, pretty active. So I got married and moved to Winnipeg in Canada, which
that was your first mistake.
That I remember seeing the doctor up there. Universal healthcare was like a whole new thing for me. And the doctor told me, he was the funniest guy. And he said, like, you're going to gain at least 15 or 20 pounds your first year here, because like this winter is going to be like nothing you've ever experienced. Mm-hmm. So I kind of was like, okay, I'm going to gain weight, but like I was a super healthy eater. Like, yes, I love my snacks and my treats, but like 80% of my diet is super healthy. I love fresh vegetables. I love fruits when they're in season. So I'm always hydrated. So that was never really a big deal. But I was so depressed up there. It was like not a great marriage. I basically spent all my time, oh, let me try this new restaurant and let me go out with these friends I work with. And like, we just went out drinking like every Friday night. And, so I think that's what happened is I ended up, by the time I left there 3 years later, I had gained 55 pounds. So that was my first like, oh gosh, I gained weight. So then, I come home and I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to gain weight. So I can't tell you. I mean, when I first started your program, made a list of stuff, and I'm like, I can't even think of the number of diets I've done, like South Beach, low carb, low fat, Weight Watchers multiple times. And like sugar detox, eat clean, you name it. And then I'm like, well, like the diets aren't working. So like you have talked about in your program a lot of them market themselves as like wellness. And, so I tried
lifestyle change.
Yes, lifestyle change. And I'm working on changing my attitude toward exercise. And you'll be happy to know I've exercised every day this week.
Amazing.
I'm like starting small, like you said, but like I never was someone who loved exercise. Even as a kid, my mom would kick us out of the house and I would sit in a chair and read a book while everyone else was playing. So I always was like, because I never had a problem with food until I started using it so much for comfort that then, it's like, oh, now I'm almost 30 and I'm not able to just eat what I want without gaining weight like I could for all those years. Mm-hmm. So I really was like, I gained and lost weight over the years, and I didn't know about set point weight until I knew about it before, like I came into your program, and I was kind of like, oh crap, like that's literally what happened. So, I mean, I did working with a coach that was like a fitness coach, not, where everything, it's like, I can't like not eat another cookie for the rest of my life. Like, that's just ridiculous. Mm-hmm. So, and trying the tracking. And I found that like, I hit my rock bottom, and most people are like, it was this huge event. It wasn't the divorce. It wasn't this, it wasn't any of that. I realized one day my husband and I were talking, and he was like, are you seriously measuring, like weighing out your carrots and celery? He's like, what is it? A difference of 10 calories. Wow. And all of a sudden it kind of hit me. What's the extra 10 calories? Like when he said that to me out loud. And then I started sort of thinking about it and spiraling like, oh my God, like I was spending all day Saturday, like, what can I plan that's healthy, that fits in whatever meal plan I'm doing, that he'll also eat? He'd come up and there would be like 10 cookbooks stacked on my table of just trying to find dinners. Wow. Then it was like, then I'm planning the menu. Then all day Sunday, I'm food prepping so that I don't have to do it all week when I get home. It was taking up so much of my time and energy. And as a teacher, there's always food at school. So I was just like, well, I'm completely antisocial now because I can't even go in the teacher's room to eat lunch. So I'm afraid of what's in there. I just have like no, you talk about willpower a lot. And I really thought that was my problem. Like, what is wrong with me? Why can I lose? I've lost up to 64 pounds at like on a program. But I mean, that program was like 1,000 calories a day and my hair was
Yeah.
falling out. So, but like, why can't I maintain it? Why can't I keep it? Like, it's not like I go off XYZ diet and suddenly start binging everything because, like, yes, I do, come from the binge to the yo-yo, but like, it's not like I go like, oh, I did this program and lost all this weight. And then for the next 8 months, I'm eating everything in sight. It's
Hmm.
more like, oh my gosh, I have like a bad week and eat everything in sight because I'm starving.
Yeah.
So I just couldn't figure out what it was. And I was lucky when I started with you because in my mind, I already knew like this whole diet thing is just crap. Like, I had read enough and done enough research. I knew the statistic of 95% of diets don't work. But like everything you look at is like, even when it markets itself as eating clean and whatever, it's still just like you can't have anything fun. And like, I can't help, I like my fun foods,
Yeah.
like life is not complete if you're not having fun. So I remember right before your video series ad came up in my Facebook, literally like 3 days before that, I was like, okay, the only thing I haven't tried is intermittent fasting. I'm going to try. And I came across this program that was like part-time intermittent fasting. Can I tell you, I lasted about 3 hours and I was like, it's too much math. Like, it's too much math. I can't figure out when I can eat, when I can't eat. And I think probably because I was kind of like searching and Googling, like what you look for pops up. Your ad came up for your 3-day video series. And I usually ignore all the diet stuff, but it said something about like, stop obsessing with food. And that was what caught me. Like, that's what I do. It's not what I'm eating. It's the obsession. It's like, I have to track every little thing. I remember I had a Weight Watchers leader a year ago who used to say every BLT, every bite, lick, and taste, you have to track it. And I'm so I was finding that like, I'd be stressed out at the end of the day. Oh, what else did I eat? What else did I eat? Trying to track everything. I mean, I can't even tell you the money, the time, the amount of daily time spent, like even going out to dinner with my husband on a Saturday night, an hour online of like, let me look at menus. Where can we go to eat tonight? It was unmanageable. And I came across your video series and that's when I started.
Wow. Your story is incredible. And unfortunately, it's so common for so many people. And you mentioned something, which was that for the longest time, and I actually was having a conversation with a woman yesterday, and she was saying the same thing of like, why can't I just maintain the weight loss? If I look back on some of the things I've done, I've lost the weight. Like, I'm able to lose the weight. And even you said you lost the 64 pounds, and I was able to lose the weight. So why can't I just go back to that? Why can't I maintain it? And for you, what was going through your mind as like what you thought was the reason?
I just thought like, I have no willpower. I'm a failure at this. Like, I can't do this. I've screwed up my body so much that I'm hungry all the time because I've made myself eat more over the years.
Mm.
And then on top of that, I'm 49 now, and I knew that hormones play a part also. So, there's always that coming into it. But yeah, that like, it wasn't until I started like doing your course modules and your coaching calls that I realized like, list all the other things that you're not a failure about. And I'm like, I have started so many good habits. Like, I have meditated daily for years, for maybe 6 years now, and I have never missed a day. Like, I've
Mhm.
set an alert on my phone just in case, but now it's at the point where like my habits and, like even when I was doing your habit tracker, module, I already do that in my journal with like, these are the things I do every day. Like, I have a morning routine, I have an evening routine. So like, yeah, when I think about it, back on it now, I know I'm not a failure, but it just like that. Why can't I do this one thing? was that
Yeah.
very frustrating for me. And so many people do it, like now that I'm one of the older teachers at school, I'm like, oh my gosh, all these young teachers, they're like all so fit and, like they don't eat junk food and they exercise all the time. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like it just, yeah, it's damaging to your psyche to just be confronted with that every day,
Yeah. And the
and diet
self-blame is
culture
so
is the
intense.
self-blame, and the diet culture is just everywhere. It is everywhere.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. And that feeling of, we've literally been programmed into blaming ourselves. It's a very, very smart business model. If we can sell you something that's broken, and then we can convince you that you're the broken one so that you keep buying the new thing and you keep investing in the books and the programs, then they continue to make money while your self-esteem starts to go down the drain. And
exactly.
I would be curious, at what point did you, because what usually happens is we're sleepwalking through life. We're what I like to call in the matrix. You're just going through the motion, you're doing what people tell you to do, and you're on that autopilot hamster wheel. And then at one point, you open your eyes and you start asking yourself questions about, whoa, okay, why am I doing this? Is this how I want to live my life? And is there maybe a better way or something I'm missing here? So at what point did you start opening your eyes to, all right, maybe I'm not the problem. Maybe my relationship with food does need some work and some attention, and it's time to end this. Like, what was that moment? Was it when your husband mentioned the calories that you started like noticing that maybe there's something else going on?
Yeah, it definitely was at that point. And then like kind of calculating how much money I've spent and, like how much time I've spent, and not just time on programs, but like time on like the amount of time I was giving up half my weekend for like planning and food prepping. And, like I was just exhausted thinking about it all the time. But I don't really think I thought about it as a relationship with food until I found your program. Like, I'm
Mm,
just like, oh, I have a relationship with food. And I don't think everyone knows that. I don't think people get that. Like, to
no.
me, it's just like you eat and, like that's it. You don't really think about it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I was literally one of those people all through college. And like, I was a live-in nanny for 3 years after college. And I remember they used to joke with me. They were both runners and I was really fit at the time. So, like, we all exercised a lot. And they used to call it my Ben and Jerry's diet, that like I would literally like buy a pint of ice cream. And like, sometimes I'd be like, that's my dinner tonight. Like, I just feel like eating ice cream. But like
Yeah.
at the time, I wasn't gaining weight.
Mm,
So it's really funny 20, 25 years what your body like can and can't do that it used to be able to do.
yeah,
So yeah, but I don't
absolutely.
think I thought about a relationship with food until I did your course.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because I'm so used to that term, right? Like for me, it makes sense that it's at the bottom of everything. And sometimes I'll be asking someone who's really new to this work, like, how would you describe the relationship with food? And they'll start telling me about the quality of the food that they eat. Like, I eat very healthy, and they don't really understand what it even means to have a healthy relationship with food. And I would be really curious. I don't think I've ever asked any of my clients this. Like, I know my definition of a relationship with food, but from everything that you've learned about what it means to actually have a relationship with food and how important it is, how would you describe it?
I think it's just like the big thing for me was realizing that I have a relationship with food. I look back now that I think about it more and I go back and like look at points in history. I was always the like, okay, like I'm super good Monday through Friday. And then we go out on Saturday night and I'm eating like the calories I would normally eat in like 3 days. So
Yeah.
I think now looking back on it, like you have to realize that like I say this and I say it in my weekly check-in every week. I want to eat to nourish my body with the healthy foods, but also to nourish my soul, but like
Hmm.
also not to be going back and forth between that yo-yo of like, I binge today, I eat 1,000 calories tomorrow, or, like,
Yeah.
however many calories. It just, that is the relationship. The relationship is you just kind of need to like that honor your hunger part. That was a big, that was not a stumbling block because I mean I got through it, but like the beginning of the course I was like, get rid of my diet stuff, done, get rid of my scale, done. Like I was so on board with that. And when I got to like, I realized I don't know my relationship with food because I don't know when I'm hungry and when I'm not hungry. And that it took me, I would say, like a good 3.5 to 4 weeks in that hunger and fullness module to like fill out which journal prompt works best for me. And, like being mindful when I'm eating, especially like during lunch, because I tend to multitask. And, when I was going through the program, I would close my door and turn off the lights and set a timer for 15 minutes. And like, I had an index card that I put in my lunchbox that I laminated and put in my lunchbox to remind me, like, take your 15 minutes and taste the food. And what are your five senses saying? And I had to do that for a good, like 3 to 4 weeks before I was like, I get it now.
Yeah.
I genuinely know when I'm hungry, and I genuinely know, like, just in checking in the middle. That was a big thing. Like, I never checked in the middle. I just, the clean your plate club, I just ate what was there.
Yeah.
And little things like, oh, I'm done eating for the night. Let me go brush my teeth. Whereas now during the school year, I do go to bed earlier, so it's easier. But now that I've been up a little bit later, I'm like, you know what? Sometimes I kind of want to, like, I love having a little bit of something sweet right after I eat. So a lot of the times I'll have like one piece of dark chocolate or like, a little bit of Nutella, whatever it is, I'll have just to satisfy that sweet tooth. And then sometimes a couple hours later, I'm like, oh, I'm up a little bit later. Like, yeah, I need to have something, and learning what satisfies those hunger and fullness cues. Like, just a handful of crackers isn't going to do it. I need like cheese or something with it, or a handful of nuts, or, like using the different macros and, like not just maxing out. I mean, I've never been someone who liked carb heavy meals, but I've always been someone who likes carb heavy snacks.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's something that you said about your relationship with food of, it's nourishing your body and it's nourishing your soul, but you're also not going from one extreme to another. And for anyone who really likes comparisons, think of a relationship with your partner, right? We can all understand that we have a relationship with our partners, and what we want is from them and from ourselves. We want consistency. We want communication. We want love. We want, a very healthy boundary setting. And you don't want a toxic relationship where they're hot and then they're cold and you get the best of them and you get the worst of them. And I really do compare the diet cycle to this toxic relationship where you keep coming back for the good parts and you forget about those really terrible parts where you're thinking about food 24/7 and you feel guilt and shame and regret and embarrassment all the time. If you're in a relationship that way and you keep going back to it, the answer isn't to go back to them one more time. The answer is that's not your person. And the same thing has to happen with dieting. It's like, no, you're not the problem. And often in a toxic relationship, they make you believe you're the problem, right? And if you're going to be alone, if you go out there, good luck, because no one's going to want to be with you. And so there is such a close parallel between like that diet cycle. That's why you keep coming back, because you believe you're the problem.
Yeah, it's so funny that you say that, because I was talking to a friend about it, and the diet industry is gaslighting you, basically, which is what someone in a toxic relationship with you would be doing.
Yeah.
And, like when you're like, I would get to the point sometimes where I would like hide food, like from who? Who am I hiding food from? Like, my husband doesn't care what I eat. So now I make a point of like, if I want something sweet right after dinner, I bring it right out to the table while he's finishing up and, like have it right there. And I'm like, seriously, like, this is ridiculous. This is like so many things that I do that no one cares about what I do. So like, I'm the only one who cares. But yeah, that toxic relationship and the back and forth and like being able to reintroduce foods was like huge. And, like starting with that one food and then little foods. And I mean, I honestly, right now, I probably have 10 of my favorite foods in the house. And some of them I don't even think about. Like,
wow.
Girl Scout cookies came at the end of February. I still have a box in my freezer that I haven't even opened. And I know they're there, like I have my, like I was saying, my pint of ice cream. My husband the other day was like, do you know you still have ice cream in the freezer? And I'm like, yes, I do. I do know I have ice cream in the freezer, but it's there if I need it.
Mm-hmm.
And then because like you said, giving yourself that permission, I can say, oh, I am someone who likes to have something sweet after I eat dinner. And I can have a bite or two of Nutella with some animal crackers, or a small dish of ice cream, or a cookie or two, instead of I haven't allowed myself to have sweets for 4 weeks and now I'm binging on everything in sight.
Yeah. I would be curious, when you first joined the program, when you made that decision, what were you hoping to get out of it? And what were you expecting? Like, what were you expecting to learn inside the program?
I was honestly expecting, like, the hunger and fullness thing was a big thing. Learning about what a relationship with food is, and learning, for me, like the toxic positivity stuff. Like, when you said it's okay to not love your body all the time, you can just appreciate it. Like, I'm still working on the body image stuff. I think everyone, for your whole, like, I don't think it matters what you look like. I think especially as women in this society, you're always going to be doing that. But for me, I think overcoming the guilt of, like, okay, now I have I'm never, like, I've said goodbye to ever being, where I was in my 20s. But now I'm like, oh my gosh, I think I might have said goodbye to, like, ever being, this weight, and then this next 10 pounds, and maybe this next 10 pounds. And, like, I have to see a cardiologist now, and, like, things like that I'm like, okay, getting rid of the guilt of what I did to my body. And I had to really say to myself, and, you helped me a lot with this when we talked about it on the coaching calls, I didn't necessarily do that to my body. So, like, yes, I ate and I chose the foods to eat and I yo-yo dieted, but, like, it's not like I came up with that idea all on my own.
No.
So when I did all those things, I genuinely thought I was doing what was best, to get me in shape. So I really just want to not obsess about food. I want, like, when you say do that front porch test when you're 80, I want to be someone who, like, I don't want to have, like, end up gaining so much weight over time that I end up, like, not healthy and hard to move around. But at the same time, I don't want to always be like, I don't want to be whipping out my fitness pal when I'm, at an event when I'm 80 years old. And, I want to sit on the front porch with my best friend or my husband and, like, just enjoy being and enjoy good food, enjoy good times, learning that occasions don't have to be about the food. They can be about the people. That was a big thing for me, going through the program, to actually, like, pay attention to the food and what it tastes like, but also not pay so much attention to the food that you're not, like, present to people around you.
Yeah.
So I really feel like those were the things I wanted, like, letting go of that guilt, letting go of that obsession with, like, constantly, I'm a control freak. I am super type A. I think every woman who does your program who I've met is.
We've got lots of type A girlies.
We have a club. And like, letting go is hard for me. So I think in my mind, I thought, if I'm doing this eating program, or if I'm tracking my food, I'm controlling something. And I kind of had to just be like, you know what? I have to give up control and not worry about what I look like so much. And, like, go out and buy clothes that fit me and not try to squeeze into clothes that are, a size and a half too small, because I don't want to spend money on clothing and, stuff like that. So just kind of really accepting, even if I don't love everything about myself, accepting this is my body now. My set point weight has changed and I want to be healthy, but I don't need to be skinny to be healthy.
Yes, I love that. And I love that you brought that piece about control, because that's a huge hurdle for a lot of people. It's this worry, this fear that if I start doing this deep healing work, which you now know is a lot of deep healing work, right? Like, we don't stay on the surface level. We look at how can we address the root cause? And there's this fear of, like, okay, well, if I let go of dieting, if I stop doing what I've been doing for decades, this is the only thing that has kept me in control. Did you have any fears when you joined the program about what would happen? Like, there's a lot of fears that can come up. Was there any fears that came up for you?
Oh yeah. Like, am I going to gain even more weight? Am I going to lose control over, like foods and things like that? Especially as I start to do that, reintroducing those foods and everything. I mean, of course, there's always, what are people going to think if I just decide, what, I'm happy in my body, deal with it. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's a big thing, like you don't realize, you have family members and friends and doctors who, might tell you otherwise. So yeah, just really, yeah. What if I gain more weight? What if I, lose control over food and I just constantly binge,
Yeah.
I think everyone thinks that until they start going through the healing work. And the healing work is deep. I mean, like there were
Yeah.
some that I'd have to be like, oh, I need to come back to this in a few minutes. Or like, I had to really think about some of the prompts I would have to like let myself really marinate on. And, like I'm not jumping into the next one because I'm one of those people who like, even if I spend more time doing this, I need to like really have an understanding of it.
Yeah. Is there anything that surprised you? Like you had all of these fears going into it. And then, like you said, once you start doing the deep healing work, you realize like, oh no, these are the beliefs that are actually holding me stuck in this pattern. And so now that you've actually gone through it, is there anything that surprised you about the work that we did inside the program and how it reflected not just in your relationship with food, but like in your life as a whole?
Oh my gosh. The CTFAR model, like the self-coaching model, it took me a while to like grasp it. And I had to, a lot of the times I would have to like at the end of the day, I would have to go back and kind of reflect on it after the fact. That it got to the point where like I probably use that self-coaching model more for things not food related now than I do for
Yeah.
anything else. Like, especially when, work, work is very stressful for me. I would just find myself in the middle. The first thing I'd be like, okay, I'd either identify this is the thought I'm having or this is the feeling I'm having. And then totally just in the moment in my brain, be like, okay, what do I need to do to rework this?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I'd be able to journal about it right then, but like on the spot at work, I often wouldn't be. But like then I'd come home at the end of the day and be like, that's why I'm one of those people who journals in the morning and the evening. Cause like the morning you set your intentions and everything, but then the
Yeah.
evening is when you get to reflect, like what worked, what didn't work. And I was finding like, oh my gosh, I used CTFAR today for like something that was not even food related, or, like that really, once I got like into the habit of doing it, it's just, you have to practice everything you do. Like you have to keep doing it and doing it and doing it until, like you said, until it, becomes
Automatic.
automatic. Yeah.
Yeah.
And now I just find myself, I do that a lot just to kind of like talk myself through and realize the thoughts and the feelings I'm having and realize where they're coming from.
Yeah.
So that has been a big change in my life.
It's so interesting because when I first started this program, I was like so excited about helping people heal from the same thing that I struggled with. And it was only once I really created the course and the program and I started doing the coaching that I realized that one of the biggest takeaways and one of the biggest changes and transformations that you guys get that like makes me almost want to tear up because it's so powerful is when you start realizing that you have power over your thoughts and your emotions and that you can create the kind of reality that you want to create and that you no longer have to feel victim to your old thoughts and your old behaviors. And just like one of our members was saying this week, like it's been 2 weeks of the program and she was saying, I don't know why, but I just feel happier. And it's just like, if you were to describe how your life is now that you've gone through the program, what is your life like in your relationship with food, with yourself?
Well, first of all, I feel like time has opened up. Like even when I was working, and June is always a very stressful month for teachers, time has opened up because I'm not, oh, I have to track that. Oh, I have to, spend an hour researching. So like the time is definitely a big thing. And also just like, what do I feel like eating? Like I am one of those people who I would like same breakfast every day, same dinner every, like my husband, it drives him crazy. So I'd end up cooking 2 meals because I'd be like, I'm going to eat this 4 nights in a row. And he's like, maybe leftovers once, that's about it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'd cook like whatever I was doing for the lunch for the week. So I think I had mentioned to you, like the last couple weeks of school, I started changing it up and I just bought a bunch of stuff that I like went to the supermarket and the brie looks good today and the figs look good today. And, I'm going to do prosciutto and mozzarella. And I would just be like, what do I feel like tomorrow? And I'd pack a couple like little bento boxes and, change it up. This kind of nut today and this kind of nut tomorrow. And just those little bit of changes. And also I now pack a lot of extra snacks. So instead of, I used to pack my lunch and I would be like, okay, this is the food I'm allowed to eat today. Now I'm just like, okay, this is what I'm having for breakfast. This is what I'm having for snack. This is my lunch. But you know what? I'm going to throw in a protein bar and I'm going to throw in some extra nuts and fruit or a cheese stick. Because if I do get hungry, I want to have some options. Mm-hmm. So just doing that and letting myself like really honoring my hunger. I don't think I've done that probably since I was a kid.
Wow. And do you feel like it's a hard thing to communicate to anyone who's not done this work, is that actually when you learn to heal your relationship with food and to listen to your body, you don't enjoy food less. You actually enjoy food more because you're more present and you have more choices and you're not doing it from a place of guilt and shame anymore.
Exactly. And, like I would say to anyone who is starting out or, not sure also, the other thing is you realize what really tastes good and satisfying. So like, I remember starting and thinking, I'm never going to be able, like, if I'm eating something delicious, I'm never going to be able to stop eating it.
It tastes so good. I don't want to stop.
Right. And has always been my problem. But like, now I'm just like, you know what? Yeah, that last bite wasn't as satisfying and tasty as the one before it. Mm-hmm. So like, I never like, I don't know. I guess when you start, you can't imagine you're going to get to that point. Yeah. And then I remember thinking at the beginning, oh my gosh, it's only 3 months. I'm never going to do all this in 3 months. And I can't believe how far I mean, look, we all have work to still do, but I can't believe how far I've come and like how I can look back and I'm motivated to be like, oh, okay. Like, I'm having a tough week. I can bring out the hunger and fullness journal again. I can bring out the habit tracker or, whatever I need. So I think that part of it also just, being gracious with yourself, also like I'm going to have weeks where I eat more. And, like, I think I had talked to you about that last week. I just like the past couple of weeks, I've just felt like I'm eating a lot more. And I'm like, oh, but I also packed up and moved an entire classroom in like 95-degree heat. And I'm a little hormonal. So like, there are reasons. And like, it wasn't that I was, oh, I want ice cream. It was, oh my gosh, I'm really hungry.
I'm hungry. My body needs more food.
And I mean, and I knew that because my mom always used to say like, if you're hungry, broccoli will satisfy you. So like, it's true. Sometimes I would eat like veggies and hummus and that would satisfy me because I was genuinely, hungry. Yeah. So just kind of learning, and I still have to work on like, oh, this is my body telling me I need food. Yeah. This is like, you have to override those thoughts sometimes still that now is not the time to eat. You kind of have to be like, but you know what? My body's telling me it is the time to eat. And for me, this whole point was for me to trust my body so my body can trust me.
Yes. Oh my God. I love that. Mic drop. And for anyone who is where you were right before you started and you've got like all these conflicting thoughts of, I really know I don't want to live the rest of my life, 80 years old on my front porch, taking out my fitness pal and feeling obsessed with food on my body. And one of the things I always say is like letting the size of your body dictate the size of your life. But there's also this fear of what if I lose control? What if I gain more weight? And our brains are awesome. They always go to the worst case scenario. Like if you were to write down what the worst case scenario is and you were to be honest with yourself, sometimes it's like absolutely crazy. It's like my husband will leave me, my kids won't love me. Like it feels really scary. And it's our nervous system that's like feeling unsafe to do something different. And that's the biggest thing. It's not that it's wrong. It's just that it's different. And you have experienced all those fears and you know what it's like. And there are a lot of people who are still where you were. What would you say to them as someone who's on the other side?
Just really trust that, like, honestly, you're amazing as a coach, and like everything that you taught me and all the course modules, and like, don't stress about getting through them all. I was like, I have to do one whole section a week, and that didn't always happen. But like, I really feel like you have to just trust yourself and trust the process, and don't skip out on doing the work. Like, it's not an easy process, but it's so worth it. I mean, it's every journal prompt. There were some of those journal prompts that I was like, whoa, we're getting deep here. And, I had to be like,
Sorry.
okay, I'm not in the headspace for this. I'll come back to it tomorrow. Like, I really, because to me, I committed to like, like, I'm doing this program and I'm spending the time and I'm spending the money, and I'm going to give my all.
Yeah.
So, just really trust that there's going to be some parts of it that are going to be super easy for you personally. And there are some parts that are going to be really challenging, and that's going to, differ depending on the person, but just really be honest with yourself and like, really do that thought work. And for me, a lot of it, like, it's hard to give up the notion of I'm doing this program to lose weight, because that's not why we're doing it.
Yeah.
And I spent about 2 weeks where literally, like, I would get, either before I got into or when I got out of the shower, I would like make myself say 3 positive things about my body, where
that.
Even if it wasn't a positive, it was like something I appreciate. Like, oh, I recovered from a major injury, and, like, this scar is from that. And, little things like, okay, I'm mobile and I'm able to do this. And, like, this part of me is strong, because I did feel like, okay, I have to accept that this is my body. For me, that was the hardest part.
Yeah.
But also just realizing that I can be healthy in this body, and I can have a full life in this body. And in the long run, I would rather be in this body and enjoy my life and enjoy eating and enjoy going out with people than being like, okay, I'm going to like never leave my house again and only eat 1,200 calories a day. And never put on a bathing suit, like, there's just, to me, it kind of became like, what is the trade-off? Like, what do I have to give up to get where I need to be? And, for me, giving up that body image and accepting and forgiving myself for like, I can't believe it got this far, was how I felt when I started the program. So now I'm like, you know what, but now I'm 49 and I still have hopefully, almost half my life to live through, and don't have to do the past 27 years of diet culture.
Yeah. So this is such a good place to wrap up. And I love what you said about you have to be willing to do the work. And there are some things that are going to be challenging. And what I always say to anyone who even considers joining my program is like, if you're looking for a quick fix, man, you will not find it here. If you're looking for easy food rules to follow, you will not find it here, because we do deep work. And I mean, I've done so many group programs that I knew going into it, this is going to be a challenge, and this is going to stretch me, and this is going to push me. And that's why I'm doing it. Like, if you want to grow, you need to be up for a challenge. And if you're not, going for the easy way out is usually the hardest way, because you get to choose your hard. There's the hard where you're extremely miserable and you're doing the quick fixes and the easy, or there's the hard where you're like, you know what? I'm going to focus my attention, my energy to healing, so that the next 50 years of my life are a life that I actually enjoy.
Yeah. And if I could just, say one more thing, for me, I've always, and you talk about this all the time, we tend to go to our comfort zone, whatever that is, even when it is those negative habits.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of came into this, and at the time I was also coming into like a change at work, and I need to be a little bit braver, and I need to embrace change. Like, I am always someone who has hated any kind of change. So I kind of came into it. You have to come into it really believing that, like, I'm doing this to change. So I need to commit to changing then. You can't just
Yeah.
say you're going to change something and go back to the same habits you used to do. So
Yeah.
for me, I like actually have like embrace change, like all over the place. Like I remind myself all the time. It's in my journal. It's like, that's like 2-word mantra. I say it to myself 100 times a day because to me, I had to embrace it. I couldn't just say, I'm going to do this program for 3 months and then that's it.
Yeah.
This had to be, I am changing this year. So
That there's a graphic that I saw on Instagram, and it was like 2 booths, and one says people who want change, and there's like this line behind that booth, and then there's people who want to change, and there's no one there. And I just think like what you just said made me think of that, and it's so accurate. And like honestly, I could talk to you for hours, and you left so many valuable insights and like pieces of wisdom from your own journey. And I really appreciate you being here. It was a honor, a pleasure to see you change and to see you embrace the challenge and like to see you reap the benefits from it now. Like it's really beautiful to see. Thank you, Nikki.
Thank you. And I can't thank you enough. This was life-changing.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you found it valuable, I would love if you would share it with someone you know that could benefit. If you're loving the show, don't forget to subscribe over on Apple Podcasts so you don't miss a single episode. I really love hearing feedback from you, so please leave a rating and review over on Apple to help us get in the ears of more people who need it the most. Finally, come hang out with me on Instagram at Sabrina Magna Health for more educational content and get up close and personal with me. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you on the next episode.